Of course, the one we're all most familiar with is the single rotor, sometimes just called a conventional helicopter. So a single main rotor, which provides the lift or rotor thrust, and a tail rotor to counteract the torque reaction. Now, I've looked to try and see how much of that is doing what. I can give you my gut instinct, and that is, yeah, we already know that the tail rotor will take 10 to 20% of the engine power to counteract the torque. But how much of the tail rotor is countering torque reaction and how much is providing directional control in the hover? Well, if I had to put money on it, I would say that 90% of the tail rotor is countering the torque, and only about 10% is used for directional control in the hover. And that's just a gut feeling, but it's mostly to do with anti-torque. Secondary effect is to use it for directional control, for your control in the hover. Simpler and lighter than tandem types, but the fuselage is going to be proportionally longer. Generally require a lot less maintenance, and for those reasons it's probably the most common types that you'll see in service. This one, the AS350 Squirrel, one of the great loves of my life, about half of my flying, over 3,500 hours in the Squirrel. Really reliable, solid platform, wonderful machine. The main rotor is driven from the main gearbox through the drive shaft, as we saw in the previous lesson. The hub itself can be made of titanium or alloys, or increasingly nowadays from composites. Now, the blades must be permitted movement. They must be able to flap and feather and drag. What do I mean by that? Well, the first thing I need to do is I need to allow my blades to flap up and down. If they don't flap up and down, then they can't flap to equality. The forward going blade gets more V squared, so climbs, and the rear going blade gets less V squared, so descends. But when it climbs, that is meeting more induced flow, so actually the effect of induced flow reducing alpha means that we never really get to that. We flap to equality in a fairly small distance, and likewise on the downgoing blade we're getting less induced flow, more alpha, so we're restored, flapping to equality. That's the first movement we must allow. Feathering is pitch change, so we must allow the blades to be able to change from flat pitch to max pitch and everything in between, both in cyclic and in collective. And lastly, when we allow the blades to cone up slightly when we put load on, the centre of gravity of the blades move inwards. And just like a skater on ice, when the skater starts to spin, the arms go out, and when the arms come in, the spin rate increases until they put the arms out again. That's called conservation of angular momentum, and it's all to do with the fact that the mass, the velocity and the radius are inextricably linked. If the radius reduces to conserve angular momentum, the velocity or the rate of turn must increase. And if we increase the radius, the velocity must slow down. So that is all about conserving angular momentum. How that is happening, it depends on the head type. So this one is fully articulated. This happens to be a gazelle head with multiple hinges. You can see they're labelled there. The flapping hinge at the right at the head itself allows the whole blade extension arm and the blade grips to flap up and down. The feathering bearing is a sleeve bearing within the extension arm, and that is little needle roller bearings drip lubricated by oil in those little bottles you can see at the top, and that allows the thing to change in pitch, so we can change the pitch of the blade cyclically and collectively. And finally, dragging is allowed through the blade pin, which is the sort of black lump you can see just at the blade root, and that is constrained slightly by the pseudo drag dampers. Some aircraft have a little hydraulic damper for that. The Gazelle here has two pieces of metal. You can't see it that way, but if I turned it that way, it's two forks, and those forks are filled with elastomers, so we're allowing just a little bit of movement there. It damps the amount of lead lag. Okay, so lead lag or dragging. So up and down on a flapping hinge, feathering through the pitch change bearing, fore and aft through dragging or the lead lag hinge. Straightforward. Flap limiters are there to prevent damage to the head. Flap limiters are there normally to prevent too much upward flapping and too much downward flapping. So that's flap limiters on the head itself. The dampers that I've indicated reduce oscillations called from lead lag. Now, these hinges are all lubricated by that drip feed I pointed out. So it's known as a wet head. The pitch change rods coming up from the rotating swash plate act on the pitch change horns, which give you some mechanical advantage, a bit of leverage to change the pitch of the blades. So the rods connect to the upper swash plate at the bottom and to the pitch change horns at the top. The droop stops sitting below all of that prevent damage to the rotor mast at low NR. So unlike the flapping restrainers which work on each blade for up and down, the droop stop rings prevents the whole thing from sagging down and damaging at low NR to stop them contacting the airframe, stop the blades cutting your tail boom off. Now, some of those stops are made to be deliberately less effective at low NR, and they use all sorts of clever gizmos, centrifugal force, hydraulics, various things to move variable stops in and out. And when you get to your final types with your fleet that you're going to fly on, you'll learn all about those as part of the type rating course.